Hello, we're so glad to be here July the 22nd at the Velarde Gallery, which has just inaugurated their very first show, a really grand affair featuring Alessandro Twombly, our artist, whose work you can see right behind us. My name is Richard Milazzo. I'm presently writing a book on Alessandro's work, and to my left here is Charlie Castleton, a very well-known author, novelist. His novel, Meanwhile Gardens, did very well, and we're so glad to have Charlie with us today. And Alessandro Twombly, so glad that you joined us all the way from Rome, or near Rome. So happy to have you here.
Very happy to be here, Richard.
So, as you can see from the pictures behind us, the work is really quite free-flowing, and one might say almost unruly. Can you talk a little bit about how the work comes about, especially these beautiful 6 pieces?
Well, the work comes out. My intention is always to convey energy, and I do this through trying to exercise images, and so the process is non-figurative, but it tries to convey energy and in painting and a sort of form of unreal images, so to speak. Yes,
that's interesting. So it is abstract, but what's interesting too is that I know you have an abiding interest in the floral world, in your support in the Middle East of certain plants and flowers that are endangered. And I know, and even in Ronciglione, outside Rome, you have greenhouses and you cultivate certain kinds of flowers. I know, so that even though the pictures are abstract, they appear to be floral, don't you think, Charlie? I mean, and they seem to have several dimensions.
Yes, I would say that. I mean, they do seem to be the floral, but then you can also actually read in other things into the painting. So yes, they are maybe sort of based on flowers, but if I look at them, I always see other things in them. So yes, I mean, there is like a floral base to them, but then they seem to sort of go off into other things, and the more that you look at them, the more that you get things out of them. And yes, and I also find it really wonderful with Alessandro's work, all of the colouring all the time in the paints, and the mixture of the colours always really gets me, because it's such an explosion of colour and energy which you get off the paper, which I always think is amazing.
Interesting.
Alessandro's work.
Alessandro, so basically somebody looks at the paintings, they come in and they see abstract work. But what's interesting is that the abstractions, do they have a connection to the real world, or am I just reading into them like that? Do you feel like there's a connection by the things you love in your life, and they get into your art, or?
Well, yes, they do, because I don't start with a precise idea in my work. It doesn't begin from something. They begin with a sort of unknown body, and sometimes I refer to this unknown body as flowers, but in actual fact, this idea of the real flower is diluted to a kind of form, psychological form, which relates mostly to nature. Anyway, it's a form of abstract body, and so as there is no specific reference, I tend to work, a lot with the subconscious, and things come out, unravel in such a way.
Yeah, you almost get the feeling that you're taking the extremities of nature and the extremities of the human being, of the human psychology, and you're bringing them together, or else you're not even bringing them together. You see them as together, that they come together in your mind.
Well, as you say, it is correct what you're saying, and I don't spend much time in relating to one or the other. Sometimes I'm inspired by an element I see, like a flower, or relate to something that I know about in nature. And I guess the process goes by passion and intention on that particular visual reference, or just a general idea that connects with the expression of the work.
Now, Charlie, I noticed that you wrote a beautiful statement for the exhibition, and you talk about metamorphosis, and you talk about, what was the other term you used? You used the word flowers, but metamorphosis, and then you use another term.
Creatural?
And the title, what is the title that you gave your text?
It's not my title. I mean, it's the work that Alessandro gave to the whole of the works.
Okay. But metamorphosis plays a role, doesn't it?
Yeah, metamorphosis plays a role, which is all about changing, isn't it? Metamorphosis. You change something. So yes, I mean the flowers. Yes, I mean they'd be drawn as flowers, but they do change into other things. They have different energies rather than floral energies, I find.
Do you feel that that's an accurate description of?
It is. You know, sometimes I tend to have a lot of geographical references to, you know, the places, localities, and whether geographic or cultural or human or also natural. And you know, my intention is always, not really intention, but my flow is always to bind these things together and kind of process them and cook them in a way as they would all be linked in a way, you know?
Well, the thing I've been amazed, knowing you as long as I've known you for, is that you're not, I never feel like you're an artist from a particular culture. And in fact, you travel so much, and you go to the Middle East and various parts of the world. It shouldn't limit it just to the Middle East. You've traveled so much, and I feel like you bring the world to these images. It's a cliche to say have a global spirit, but I would say that, you know, you bring localities, but you bring localities from the farthest, most exotic lands, and that's always been your nature, and it's always, to me, as a writer, is a source of inspiration to look at your work. I always feel like the world is a bigger and much nicer, better place when I look at your works. Do you feel that those travels have mattered a lot to you over the years?
Well, indeed, yes, because you know, as you say, I like very much the Middle East because of its unique space, but deep culture, ancient and contemporary. And it is a very rarefied world, you know, because of the space and the sharp elements, visual elements that one can catch and convey. And it has a very, you know, particular and strong reference in the way I connect to my work, you know, as conceptually. But then painting, obviously, you know, is another issue because you know, my painting is doesn't tend to be descriptive, so you know, it falls into another category, if you want. Yes.
Yeah, because one thing is, and Charlie, I don't know if you'd agree with this, when you look at them quickly, you think of a floral dimension, but then when you start allowing them inside and you start interacting with them, you discover so many other dimensions.
I certainly find that. Yes, I do certainly find that. I mean, with his work, because yes, I mean the outside and they might seem, you know, very very floral, but if you sort of stand back and you look at them over hours or days, they do change in your eye and your image, and you get to see loads of other things that you didn't see originally.
That's why metamorphosis is such a great term.
Exactly, metamorphosis really. I mean, the form is being changed, isn't it? The form is being changed.
And then we're interacting constantly with it. That's the other thing, Alessandro. You know, you give the viewer the opportunity to sort of kind of not necessarily run wild because you have such a disciplined approach. It's a little deceptive when you look at the 6 pictures. You think that there's a kind of, you could say, well, this is just really free-flowing. It is free-flowing, but there's a lot of discipline. I mean, how does that figure into the work? I mean, I know you tend to discard things a lot, so how does that work? How does that, the relationship between that allowing yourself to be free-flowing, and then, but also to arrive at some kind of aesthetic consummation?
Well, I don't know. It's form. It comes only out of the individuality. I guess one's perception of how an image can be given life and energy and resist, to some to staticism. And so, I guess it's a thing which is embedded in, my visual perception, and so, I mean, it has to do also with having studied painting a lot and having seen painting a lot, and, you develop a maturity to understand for one's capabilities where an image is convincing, and energetical.
Is that an intuitive decision oftentimes?
Well, it's, as I said, it's, it comes out of self-education, I mean, but also intuitive, yes, I would say.
Wonderful. Charlie, since you're a novelist, that makes you creative, I think, I would assume. Do you think there's any, and since I write also, do you think there's any kind of relation, when you look at a work like Alessandro's, which is so full-bodied and abstract and open and allowing for so much interpretation, how do you think that interacts, when you look at it as a creative person yourself, how do you think Alessandro's work works in relationship to yourself as that kind of person?
Well, I'm just always so curious with his work how he actually knows when to end, because I think when you're sort of writing a story, you have a definite start, middle, and an end. It's a different kind of creative form. But I think when you paint, it must be hard sometimes to know when the image is done, and it must be very sort of tempting to overdo the image, and then you kind of wrecked it, haven't you? So I think it's different.
Have you wrecked a lot of images, Alessandro?
Have I what?
Have you wrecked a lot of images?
If you sort of overdone them, and then you sort of change something, and then,
well,
then it's not the same as it
I-
was before.
Absolutely. I tend to waste a lot of paper and rip up a lot of paper because sometimes given the wrong moment, maybe things don't turn out properly, and it's also a process of getting the right moment, and sometimes the spirit is not there, so there's a lot of waste in my work.
But I mean, do you actually know when the image is finished? You think, okay, that's it. I've got the image now, or are you always tempted to go back and tweak a little bit? And
Well, it depends. It depends on the times.
Yeah.
Sometimes I reprocess a lot, and sometimes I take months to reassess the work, and sometimes I just have very long flows of work, which can last for months, etc. And it's just that, the work. Usually, one has to warm up the engines in order to get to a proper limit of one's expressions.
You know that I've noticed over the years, you're one of those very, very special artists that doesn't find a language, one single language, and then sticks to that language for the rest of their career. It's almost like it's like in an age of specialization, you almost feel like so many artists try to find their language and then they keep repeating it forever. Yeah. I've known so many years I've known you since the early 90s. It's quite a bit of time, and every time I look at you've had so many different periods of work. Do you get impatient with your work and you say, I think I need to go in another direction? I mean, how does that work? Because how could you generate so many different bodies of work over this period of time and not just find one little formula and then stick to it?
Well, I think the key is energy and exorcism. So if you want to maintain those two elements in the outcome of the work, you always have to reinvent yourself in a way in order to maintain these two elements.
I have one last question, and Charlie, I hope you won't mind my asking this one, but you'll be interested in the answer. How are the 10 dogs doing in Ronciglione? Do you miss them? Can you function without them?
Well, I have a big family, and the heart and soul which I have at home more than the walls, they're my 10 dogs.
That's sweet. I can't wait to go back and visit. And Argo's doing well, right? You told me that he had a little bit of repair work and now he's much better, right?
Yes, he's always in trouble, but he's always strong.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I think we've had a wonderful session with Charlie Castleton, a wonderful novelist, and of course the subject of our talk today, Alessandro Twombly, whose beautiful images you see behind us, and we were so happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.